Welcome back to another Memory Card, a Level 30 Games podcast that takes a look at the newest titles while drawing a line back on those classics. I'm your host, Drew Ashcroft, and with me I have my boy Tom Kennedy. How you doing, Tom?
Woo! We are rocking and rolling. I'm missing my daylight hours in which to play Resident Evil 9 before it gets dark, and then it becomes super scary. Oh my god.
Or go outside because it's such a nice day.
Oh yes, no, it's so nice. It's a good thing we have snow in the forecast next week.
Woo! That's the March weather for you.
There you go.
Well, speaking of March, this month a new franchise in the Resident Evil series came out called Resident Evil Requiem. It is the game, what?
A new franchise came out? A new game in the franchise came out.
All right, then rewind it. A new game in the Resident Evil franchise came out this month, and that is Requiem. This time we are playing as the longtime man Leon Kennedy, who has been in and starred in 4 of many Resident Evils. Well, this time he brings with him a new cast of characters and a new storyline to extend and convolute the universe that is Resident Evil a little bit more. And I know this is a game I've been anticipating for a long time. I've always been a Resident Evil fan. I like the survival horror series. Have you been as excited as I've been?
So not officially. This is a game where the hype cycle got me a little bit. But what I've actually come to realize in digging down a little bit of a Resident Evil rabbit hole for this episode is that while I haven't necessarily finished every game in the series, I've played through a large portion of most of them. And I've really come to respect this franchise as a whole for what it's brought to the video game landscape, but also just how constantly it manages to reinvent itself. Sometimes for better and sometimes for worse. But like, this was a pivotal franchise when it first launched in 1996. So we're talking a 30-year anniversary here. And 30 years, 9 mainline games, that's a pretty good track record for the most part, I think. Despite the fact that there were, some stumbles along the way. And that also excludes a lot of the offshoots, too. So I wouldn't say I was initially excited, but my hype cycle kicked into full gear the moment I decided to pre-order the Generations Pack. And that only intensified the more and more that pre-order got delayed beyond the release date because that was a little infuriating. And so I came in a few days after the fact, and I had to deal with that opening weekend of everybody playing it and then me kind of just sitting on the sidelines. So that probably helped a little bit, but I was really stoked to get into this game. And I don't know, Drew. I sent you a picture. I somehow managed to get 3 Switch 2 games in the mail on the same day. And so, like the other 2 games, one of which was Pokemon Pokopia, which I haven't even opened yet. It's sitting unwrapped on my dining room table as Resident Evil's been taking over my precious few gaming hours that I've been trying to cram in just for this podcast. So, you're welcome.
But yes, Tom is right. 9 mainline games and quite a few spin-offs, right? We had Code Veronica, Dead Aims, Outbreaks, Operation Raccoon City, Mercenaries, Revelations, which is a nostalgic one to me, Resistance, and then some online things that have flunked a couple times.
Yeah. There were some online ones too, right? Like specifically only playable online.
Yeah. The Outbreaks were PS2 exclusives. I think they were the ones that had that online.
I think so.
There was another one years later, Operation Raccoon City, which I wanted to love so badly on the PlayStation 3 that ended up just becoming so horrible. Like, it was kind of like Dead by Daylight in a way.
Okay.
Because it was wave-based and you were trying to survive for as long as you could, and the online feature just wasn't good. But Revelations did that really well with online. It was just 2 people, and you were going through mini plot points in the campaign.
Interesting. That's cool.
It was great. So with Requiem, right, we are, like Tom said, we are reinventing the wheel multiple times over in these 9 mainline games. And so we're going to talk about quite a few of the changes in the core franchises, some influences that are not Resident Evil based, a lot of parallels and some tropes, because talking about a survival horror game, right, from back in the day when I was on PlayStation 1, who knew isometric blocky characters would scare the living daylights out of you, and nowadays it's even more horrifying, right? The graphics are very good, and there were times where I was like, I don't know if I can press on. The older I get, the more like Dark Souls, I'm like, is this my last survival horror? Like, can I continue on after this, or should I just retire and let the next generation play on?
Yeah, there's something really interesting about the mental cycle that I go through when playing a Resident Evil game. And it certainly happened again with this one, as it did in Village and 7 and 4 remake and 2 remake. I mean, I like all of them. But like I got basically a big scaredy cat when it comes to playing these games. And I think it does at some point. Like, you got to look at how horror within different mediums impact us. Because I was having this conversation with someone at work, how I felt that there were moments in the beginning of this game where I was really terrified and found it hard to press on. But I also had moments where I was like, okay, I also need to hit the home button and just stare at a white screen with no sound and breathe for a second, because I was that terrified to continue. And then several times, even within the opening hour, where every couple of minutes I had a very visceral, loud, guttural scream. Like, just this game taps into something, and the series has always seemed to tap into something, but it's really unique to experience because I only feel that way when I'm playing it. And it's not as if when I turn the TV off and go to bed and the lights are out that I'm afraid of what's lurking in the dark, which is kind of how I feel when I'm reading like a really scary horror book. I'm actually reading Stephen King's It right now, and there are some moments where I'm like, yeah, Pennywise might be down my hallway, and it's interesting how I'll have different mental reactions to the different mediums. Like a movie, I'll be scared in the moment, but as soon as that movie's over, depending on the character, it kind of, like my fear kind of turns off, right? Like especially growing up, Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, these were characters that legitimately in the dark of night, I'd be like, okay, they're there. I can see them. They're in my bedroom or under my bed or in the closet. And so this game has several moments where it's just kind of utterly terrifying, and it's a little bit of an obstacle to push through. But it kind of follows that Resident Evil bell curve of like, okay, you're going to be terrified for the first maybe 2 hours of this game until you get to a certain point, either in the story or in your experience, where it does kind of lessen the longer you go. Like you almost get immune to it. And I think the game structure plays to that a little bit, where in the back half of the game, you go from, I can't find bullets to, I'm just going to start lobbing grenades. And so like there's this element in the game that just kind of allows you to cater to your ability to persevere more. But there is also kind of a thrill in being scared. And I really like that the series has continued to do that every time a new game comes out.
Yeah, for sure. So with this installment, what I like is you play as two characters. You play as Grace or Leon, but the game originally sets you up to play as first person as Grace and third person as Leon, because Grace is more horror-based survival and Leon is more action-based. So they want you that RE4 behind the shoulder with a pinpoint accuracy. You shoot a zombie in the arm or leg and it actually stumbles, right? If it picks up a weapon, you can de-weapon it and have it drop.
And throw it.
And then the first person is that horrifying Resident Evil 7, where it was a game of hide and seek. You are super helpless. Like, even Tom stated to me in text that he was like, I have no ammo, I have no shiv, I have nothing that I can use to, I'm just helpless. And that, I feel like that's been every Resident Evil, is there's always like this known helplessness, and once you get past this like certain learning curve of like where zombies reach out for you and you know how to miss that hitbox, like it makes more sense. The game plays really well because at some point when you're playing as Grace, you get this crafting system, and it makes things a lot easier that you can craft ammo, you can craft a thing called a hemolytic injector, which I'll talk about in a little bit when it comes to the influences, right? And the characters that are in this care center, the girl, the baby, the sirens, are all literally horrifying. And you're like, as soon as you see it, quick turn 180, and you're like, nope, I'm out. I don't want to see you again for a little bit. Let me hide. Let me see what you can see in your periphery. Like, especially with the sirens. The sirens scream at you.
Yeah, and then
and stun lock
then
you.
they push your character back. Like they physically push him back.
Yeah, and it was like, how much of it do you need to see of me? So like you play this literal hide and seek at the beginning of this game, and it has some great moments of jump scares, and you might wet the bed, but not when you go to sleep because Tom's not reading it as a horror book. But it dwells on you a little bit after the game, and then you're like, okay, I can probably get past this and try it again. But some of these guys, the designs are so on point and horrifying.
Oh, totally. And before you get into some of those specific enemies and things, I do want to touch upon something you said, because I think what makes Resident Evil so successful as a horror franchise is that its gameplay mechanics are also so in tune with where the horror derives from, right? Like, I know we have some older games to talk about in slot 2 of this episode, so make sure you check that out. But part of the reason why I think the first game was so terrifying wasn't because it was overly graphic or dark and dingy and gross to look at or just be like creepy. I mean, part of it was that, but you're also giving me a perspective of, say, like a hallway where I can't see everything down that hallway, and I don't know what's lurking around the corner. Maybe I can hear it. And then there's this sense of dread that is kind of baked into how that game is presented, right? Like one of the mainstays that has always been successful with the horror aspect is your resource management. And you had mentioned crafting, but this is not like you're picking up loose items as you're walking around. You still have to manage things like your scrap metal and where you're going to put it or what you're going to pair it with to figure out what to make. So there is this kind of risk and reward system to just be like, okay, I have 3 bullets. I can probably take down the zombie, but I don't know what's in the next room because there could be 4, or it could be something far worse. So part of the fear resonates in that I have a chance to do something now, but I can't guarantee I'll be safe after. And it's kind of like you're tapping into that fight or flight system that's human in all of us. And yes, I can solve the problem, but it's going to have to be more, I need to gauge what might be worse. And that is an inherent fear that a lot of people have. So I just think that the mechanics of this game play into that just as much as the character designs or the enemy designs or the scenarios that you're in or the environments that you're in. It's just really smart how it forces its systems to both kind of create a sense of friction, but also at the same time, like a logical friction that we both accept as something that's real within the game world, just as normal as a human being would. So, yeah.
To add to that, right? Like you're this girl, Grace Ashcroft, who has some backstory because the Ashcroft name has been in prior installments, and I feel like this is the first iteration where you're helpless, but you're not useless,
right?
Because in Resident Evil 4, you had Ashley, and Resident Evil 5, you had Shiva, and when you weren't controlling them, it was just horrendous AI slop that you couldn't control, and you're just like, over here, and she's like coming, and just stuck on like some tiny pixel. And the nice part is that they delineate between the two stories, like you're controlling Ashley the entire time for hers, and then when you get to a certain part, there's this transition, this episodic transition that you get into Leon, and then when you finish Leon's, you go back to Ashley. And I like the pacing of the plot. I also think the plot is very well driven because I don't know how much you played Resident Evil 6, but
not a lot.
That was the one that had 3 or 4 plot lines going on at the same time.
Yeah, that was kind of a mess of a game, which is being generous.
It was absolutely a mess, but I wanted them to do what they did in here. I like Capcom over the years, right, has been very good at crafting and improving all of their gameplays, right? Resident Evil 4 introduced brand new third-person, action-y, quick-time event gameplay. And then Resident Evil 5 made it a co-op scenario. And then Resident Evil 6 made it where it utilized those with different characters that all had different abilities. That someone was better at sniping, someone was better at hand-to-hand, right? Which the problem there was the plot, again, was so convoluted, right? We had no idea what was going on at the time. Whereas in this one, they really did a good job of, like, they even timestamp when you get a new person They're like,
Yeah.
this is with time, and you can easily put together a timeline that makes sense in real time and what's happening. Whereas before, you're just like, how is Salazar just sitting in a tower waiting for me 2 days later when this entire village is destroying me? Shouldn't he have taken over the world by now?
Right, and they do a good job also with the characters. I mean, they obviously play different, but it's also kind of rooted in their behavior, and I thought that was really interesting. So when you start off with Grace, she's just kind of terrified of everything. Like you're, I was actually kind of like, all right, how in the world are you an FBI agent? Because it seems that if you're awful at most aspects of your job. And so you just say, okay, all right, she's kind of this desk hermit who is probably really good at research, and now they're thrown into the field, and they're like, all right, I guess I'll be that person that has no experience. But then you bounce over to Leon, and he's like, hey, man, I'm going to roundhouse kick you in the face, drop some one-liners, and then just take out my massive railgun and explode your face with a pinpoint perfect shot. Both of these things are like what's scary, but also is what it balances that excitement and that fun. You kind of bounce back and forth between the two, and I think that has been really cool how I know that you've completed the game. I have not. I'm still arguably in the tail end of the first section, but I'm starting to notice a change in Grace's behavior, and I really like that the demeanor in which she conducts herself, like in her body language and her voice, how it trembles, is changing a little bit, right? It's not trembling as much. I'm aiming down the sights, and there's like little things you can see that she's acclimating to her situation. And it's really cool to see that play off as the characters move through the game. I don't know if it completes that like transition in the later portion of the game, so don't spoil it, but I'm kind of exceed that, and I hope it goes in that direction.
Yeah, you have to remember Leon, in which we'll talk about in slot 2, like, it was his first day on the job.
Yeah.
Like, Grace looks like she's just, like, newly hired at the FBI.
Oh, yeah, way over her head.
Her desk is completely filled with all this paperwork, and she is more like a research analyst than she is a field operative, right? And I do like what they did well in this, and you'll see later on, is there's behind the scenes where they took all the motion captures of the actors and how they interacted in different scenes. And I think that really adds a huge level to you being engaged in the game, even when it's a cutscene. Like, you really care more for these characters, even though they're just 3D renderings, but they have like emotion, and they do a good job of the acting overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's there's just something really comforting about hearing Leon's voice. I forget the voice actor's name off the top of my head, but it was really cool to hear him reprise that role, and it's kind of like putting on a comfy jacket, right? Like, this just feels right. And I know it's kind of like a beat down and worn out jacket, and I've worn it a bunch, but people are used to seeing me like that, and it feels good, right? So it was kind of like going back as that as Leon after 4, and then to have then, oh wait, he wasn't 5, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So like he's always had this level of like coolness, and it was really cool to rejoin that, right? And the evolution of Grace, I thought, was something that was reminiscent to me as kind of like an odd parallel. But when they rebooted Tomb Raider, I saw a parallel there in that character as well, where, like, unfortunate circumstances, and you're going to have to do something that maybe you didn't want to do, like kill a bunch of guys. And she was like really remorseful at first, but by the end, you're just like bow and arrow headshots, and there's just some like badassery there that's really cool. So, the characters are really good, and the villain, at least early on, Dr. Victor, what's his name?
Dr. Gideon. Yeah, Victor Gideon.
Yeah. Victor Gideon. I don't know who the voice actor is, but his performance is awesome. It's like genuinely creepy, but confident, and also kind of relaxed. It's really unsettling. And there were a couple like lines where I thought it was very reminiscent of Heath Ledger's The Joker, like in tone. And I was just like, oh, this is really unsettling. I like this a lot.
Yeah, he was good throughout. You'll see there's one other big bad later. I won't spoil that. He's very similar to a past character. But with the Tomb Raider reboot, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the influences. So you just got to crafting. Have you made a hemolytic injector yet?
I have not. Well, wait. I think you do find one, and then they kind of force you to make it.
Have you used the one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did make it. I used it.
So those.
Well, yeah. So I'm just saying, like, the first time I was going to use it, it was just like I thought it was going to poison the zombie, and they were going to like shrivel up and die. Um,
Oh yeah.
it was not
So
that.
you can use those on the big bads,
Oh,
and some take more than one. But what I like is it reminds me exactly of one of your favorite games, and that is The Last of Us.
oh yeah,
Right.
yes,
You have the shivs that defeat the clickers, fungal. What are they called?
yeah, the clickers.
Clickers. And that was a game where I felt helpless, and I hated the whole shiv system because you have to like find one and then sneak up and stab it. But like once you get down with the exact movement and what you need to do, it makes the game a lot easier. And so in this, once you get to that area, it's like you craft them a bunch, and then sometimes you waste them on like a basic zombie, and you're like, oh, crap. Like I didn't mean to press R2 to stab it in the neck, and it blood gushing everywhere, and
Yeah.
I'm surprised your entire character is not soaked to the gills in blood.
Well, that's probably the benefit of being in first person because the blood. And actually, what I think is kind of cool about that, did you like kill a zombie and then realize the blood is just kind of like there and stays
yeah.
there? So if you shoot them a certain way and it splashes up on the wall, it doesn't disappear. It's just there the whole time. And I think that's a cool little like technical touch, I guess.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I have done my fair share of accidental button presses, which unfortunately always happens with healing items. So there's a lot of times where I'm just like injecting health into my arm, but I already have full health, and I'm like, oh god damn it, that sucks. So
It's fine. Towards the end of the game, you'll have a bunch of healing sprays. They're not sprays. I forget what they are this time.
like stims
But
or something.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it makes it a lot easier. Another game that Grace's gameplay reminds me of is the Outlast series.
Huh. I'm familiar with, but I've never actually played any of them myself.
Those are truly horrifying sometimes. Like, once you've played through them and you know where the jump scares are, it is the definition of helplessness in Outlast, because you're literally just trying to hide and wait it out and sneak past giant enemies, and that's what ends up happening in a good portion of Requiem.
Yeah, you definitely start to pick up on patterns of zombies, and you go, okay, I can run past these as long as I can get to another room. They're probably not going to follow, so you can get smarter at it as you play. You just gotta kind of pay attention to that stuff.
Yeah, which reminds me of RE7, right? I call them the safe rooms. Like, you know that the zombie's not going to come through that door, and
Right.
you're okay. There's a giant corridor in the care center that is very reminiscent of the mansions in the early Resident Evils. That is this giant space that like no one ever enters, and you're just like, okay, I can just chill here for 20 hours and the world will be saved.
Yes, that's right. Sure.
I want to talk about Resident Evil 8 real quick
Oh, boy.
because it's a weird tangent, but Resident Evil 8 set it up where I feel like it was like Mega Man with the 8 robot masters. Like, you had Lady D and then her like 3 to 4 peons that she used to try to defeat you and steal Ethan's baby, right, Rose. But what I like in this game is that the like robot masters or the bosses are all laying around this care center, and you really have to decide on like, am I going to waste ammo on you? Like, there's a butcher, there's a giant baby, there's the girl who's the oh my god factor that's jumping out of you.
Oh yeah,
and
that
then
was terrifying.
The sirens. Oh yeah, the first time I saw her, it was literally cat and mouse, and I was like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, right.
That happened so many times. There were little puzzles that I was just like, why can I not figure out what I'm to do? They're like little nuances of like looking up or something that I wasn't able to interact with originally for some reason. Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah, and some of those, I guess they're not bosses, but like they're like tank-like enemies. I don't know what you want to call them. They're not mini bosses or anything. But like they seem to be really organic to the setting. Like you mentioned the butcher. I called him the chef because he was in the kitchen, right, cutting up meat, and then he just kind of starts wandering the halls a little bit. And it's a little bit more of a set pattern than, say, like Mr. X from Resident Evil 2. but you still kind of had to account for it. And he did show up in different parts of the house, which was interesting. So, like in the first portion, I'm sorry, if the oh my god, the first portion of you moving in that part of the care center, there's like a door that's locked, and you can only get to it once you do everything else in that area and work your way around. And then it's like, okay, so he's going to walk this way, but now I can duck in the direction that used to be locked, and I can get to where I need to go a little bit faster. And so they're really clever in that sense too. And the character's not just there to be an obstacle. It's there because he was a chef and he's trying to do his job, right? Like to some degree he still is. He's just looking for for more meat to cut out, and that just happens to be you. So
Oh, that reminded me. I tried to pick something up and I didn't realize my inventory was full. And
right.
the entire time I'm sitting in the care center, I'm like, what did I miss? Like I'm looking at the map, and there was like the smallest little crank I missed in order to open a door. It was just like a waste of 30 minutes. It just killed me for a second. That was the puzzle solving.
Yeah,
Some of the puzzles.
I think the puzzles have been pretty good so far, kind of like in a pseudo Metroid sort of way, like where you go someplace and there's a clear obstacle and you're like, okay, well, obviously I'm going to need to get through there, and you find a piece of something later on, and you're like, okay, well, there's the connection point, right? Like that crank you mentioned. I got to get back to that other space. But the game is also really clever in saying, like, yeah, obviously you have to go back, but now that way back is going to be a little bit more dangerous, or we're going to have this giant fugly character drop through the ceiling and scare the shit out of you, and now you have to panic. And so, like, it's really smart about that. And I love the way that comes together.
Well, it's not always. I know it's not always smart because like at one point, you as Grace have to see this puzzle that has Braille items, and there are two other puzzles before that you click items in succession to unlock, and you have to look through briefs and photos to find the solution. And I'm like, I don't care that I can't read Braille. Why can't I just click these? But no,
right?
I have to go
had the same thought.
all the way back, grab this little girl Emily who's blind to bring her back to read it. It was like,
yeah,
right.
it was like there's 4 combinations with 3 possible outcomes. I was like, what if I did the math here? I could probably guess it and get it right within a few minutes. So I was like, okay, this is just a little wonky for sure. And it does get to a point where I don't know. I think it was optional, but did you end up getting into the pantry at all?
See, I didn't think that was optional. I thought that's what I was. No, I got in the pantry.
Okay.
What I was saying was optional was when the what was that? Where you needed the crank because the one piece broke off, and then you go into like where the garage is. That was what screwed me over. Yeah, I went in the pantry, and there were some Easter eggs in there.
Yeah, there were a few, and there's a pretty good item in there too. That helps with your aiming, I guess. But it was kind of at that point where I was like, okay, I know I can proceed out there. There's a couple things I still need to do or want to get, and that was one of them. But at one point there was just like no enemies laying around, so I was kind of just skipping through all the parts that were previously scary, and you're like, okay, maybe I'm safe at this point until I proceed a bit further, and then of course things get worse. But those moments of levity are where you're like in the clear for a while, and that does feel kind of good sometimes.
Yeah, a few more points. Grace's movement, God, is so slow.
Oh my God,
I
it's
felt
so bad.
like I was trudging through a swamp. It's like, run, girl. You're in a horror movie. Why can we not run just a bit faster?
Yeah, it's barely a jaunty stroll. It's like press L3 to run, and I was like, okay, is my controller broken? Like I couldn't actually visibly see on the screen that she was moving any faster. And then a couple times you're running, but I got hit from behind, and so like it's neat because the character stumbles forward, but I'm like, is this as fast as the game's gonna let me go? And so initially that was a little frustrating.
Another one that I laughed really hard was when Leon hands off his ridiculous Magnum style gun with one bullet, and he's like, "Be free, like go." And it was just like, you're like, what am I doing with one bullet?
Right. And so the first time I used it, I didn't quite understand like the power of it. I was just like, oh, okay, it's one bullet, so thanks, dude. And then I found bullets for another handgun, and I'm like, oh wait, I don't have another handgun. Okay, so I didn't realized this, and I actually think I went back and loaded it into my previous save because I think I just took out a normal zombie with it and realized I could use it for something a little bit more intense. Because the ammo is so scarce at that point that...
Well, at some point you'll learn how to craft it, which is nice, so
yes,
it makes
yes.
it a little bit easier.
Yeah, I have. Yep.
And you haven't seen this part, but there's a part where Grace does CPR, which is kind of interesting.
Okay.
And does it, like, properly, which I was, like, shocked about. Like, normally you watch a movie or a game and someone's just, like, pushing at their chest and
right.
giving as many breaths as possible. But I was like, wow, they, like, really put in the work. And then after the game, when I saw the behind the scenes, I was like, oh, this makes sense. They are really trying to make it more realistic than not nowadays.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there were still some like technical moments of technical frustration, and then ultimately some gameplay frustration. I don't want to get into the weeds too much here because I don't know how long we're running in this episode. But there was a moment where I was playing as Leon, and I was retracing some of the steps where Grace had been, and I killed an enemy, and there was one of those antique coins on the ground that you need for the parlor to get items. So I go up to it with Leon, and I press the A button over it, and the text on the bottom of the screen that pops up, it says, "This item is of no interest to you." And I'm just like, wait a minute. So in a world where I could put my stuff in a bin and then have it magically show up to another part of the building, I can't pick up this coin and then put it in said bin for the other character? I mean, like, come on, man. At that point, I'm just like, all right, I don't know what to do here, so we're just going to leave it. I didn't get all of those items, but that was a little annoying.
Yeah, that was a whole scavenger hunt. I was like, I need every one of these items. I'm not leaving the care center. I don't know if I'm ever coming back here,
right,
but I need them all. So I was coin hunting at one point.
Yeah, I left one of them there.
Two last quick notes. So in Resident Evil 8, at the end, right, Ethan is dead in a grave. Spoilers. We already know we're talking about spoilers.
Vaguely.
And Rose is visiting it. I want to know, yeah. That's where I want the next game to go. So my question to you is where do you think they'll take this series? I know you're not done it, but what there's already talks of Resident Evil 10 in like 2 to 3 years. Where would you want the game to go or the series to go?
Honestly, it's a good question, and I don't really feel like I can genuinely answer until I get some answers that have already been raised in Requiem, just because the story sets up with Grace's mom kind of being sought after or attacked and ultimately killed, and I don't know if that has a payoff or not. I'm really hoping it does. So I'm kind of hoping the setup for Grace to eventually go into the FBI and investigate stuff. Like, I'm kind of curious what's going on there. I'm even having a hard time remembering, is Gideon a character that has been used in other Resident Evil games before? No. Okay. So, like, his origins, and obviously, like, I don't know if it matters at all, but, like, can they as long as they can produce a game that's fun and as scary as this is, I don't really know if I care where it goes story-wise, because any one of their stories at some point gets so ridiculously convoluted. It's like they've written stuff for the character, okay, but the character dies, and then like 4 games later, because, T-Virus and all, they come back, and it always just seems that they kind of play with their own lore, but they still manage to do it in a way that is both totally bonkers but very serious at the same time. So I don't really have a good answer for you here. I mean, if Grace becomes a recurring character moving forward, I think that'd be kind of cool. I like her. And Resident Evil always seems to do interesting things with their characters and gameplay, whether it's in this game you're bouncing back and forth, or you had the zap system in like the early games, or even in like 2 where you pick a character and then you do, or what you do in the game is a bit different each time you play through with different characters. And so it does help with that replay value. I don't know. I just kind of feel like the franchise as a whole is been on a roll lately, and whatever they do with 10, I'm just kind of interested in whatever it is. I don't think it matters now. So like I was late to the table with 7 and 8 and I enjoyed them, but this game has hooked me in a way that those games didn't. And so like I'm good on the franchise moving forward, whatever they want to do.
Yeah, we'll talk about in next slot how I was late to the game. But now that we've emptied our magazines into some zombies in slot 1,
yeah, it's
time to reload that. And we'll delete some Fire Emblem from last month and see you in our next franchise game that brought us the most nostalgia.